And this is one topic I wanted to bring into the fold because musical biopics seem to be the thing now.
Hmm.
We've got done with Queen and Freddie specifically. Elton John is next. How long is it going to be into the future before we get a biopic of George Michael? Because that's a story I would
Hmm.
like to see be told. And funny thing, I was looking at some pictures of Andrew Garfield over Twitter because apparently there's one picture of him and a friend of his just completely wasted off of his head, and Andrew didn't even remember the picture being taken.
Hmm.
The eerie thing is, Andrew with the slightly more mullet-like hair, he does look like a young George Michael.
I can see that working.
Um, I don't know how far they'll wait till it's done because I think for a lot of people maybe the wounds are still a little bit too fresh because it's only 2 years this Christmas that George will have been gone. I think realistically, if they ever do get a biopic like that going, they'll probably do it. I want to say 10 years at the very least. They'll do something like this because they don't. I don't think they'll want to put it off at such a point whereby most people from the 80s and 90s won't be around anymore. I mean, I know Andrew Ridgeley is in reasonably good health, but those that actually saw him make his tribute piece for George at the Brits last year, I'm just going to be nice when I say this, and Andy, I say this with the deepest respect. Sir, you have seen better days. That's all I'm going to say, because he, even though he's in his early 50s, he looks like he's in his late 60s. And that's not me, trying to be insulting, because guys, if I want to insult somebody, I'll go there. The fine
Hmm.
line between being, the jerk and the guy telling it like it is. Uh,
Hmm.
but again, George's story is something I'd like to see happen. And since we're keeping in with the trend of naming biopics after iconic songs, well, there's only one name you could call that movie: Careless Whisper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. I mean, that is his most popular song of all time. So,
I
yeah,
mean,
that,
wait
that's
before
agree.
you go, it doesn't sound the same.
Right.
If they were doing a biopic of Wham, that's one that they could use. But of all the songs that George has done, and George has done some classics, whether it be Faith, Father Figure, Fast Love, Older, Jesus to a Child, Patience, or Amazing. Even to when he did the jazz album from '99, which did it quite, one Frank Sinatra number, like The Wind. Careless Whisper is one that has stood the test of time because he wrote that
Mhm.
teenager in, I think it was Andrew Ridgeley's room, and they taped it on something that made them sound completely tone deaf at the time. But it's a case of it's the early '80s. You work with what you have, and
Mhm.
it's such a very profound and beautiful song that so many people have covered it over the years. Yet you go back to the original, and it's still the best version. I mean, I like Tamia Washington's version from
Yeah, it was
'98.
really, yeah, it was really
Mhm.
good, really good. It was her own version. I respected that.
Yeah, and I've heard some club covers of Careless Whisper, and I'm like, stop, please, stop before you hurt yourself, because
You know what? I think I may have heard a couple months back at a club.
oh dear.
Yeah.
Speaking of covers, have you ever heard the Seether version, MJ?
I have.
I
Oddly,
have to.
oddly enough, somebody had done that as a Sonic AMV couple video for Tails and Cosmo.
Ooh.
How I know this? Don't ask. I was.
No, I'm not. Don't worry. I ain't gonna ask. We've all seen stuff.
It's like that that meme pic of Henry from Thomas the Tank Engine, just eyes wide open. I've seen shit.
Did you ever saw that one remix / mashup of someone named goes by the name of Wax Audio that combined Careless Whisper with, I think it was like a Rebel Yell.
I can't say that I have. Because I've heard of people doing this before, including, I don't know where Pete found this years ago, but he found a mashup of Eminem's "My Name Is" to the instrumental version of Britney Spears' "Crazy," and I'm like, okay then. Didn't think those two would ever go together, ever.
I wonder if Neil Cicerega ever did that. Because that dude is really great when it comes to hilarious mashups. Yeah.
Raiden, with regard to the topic, how long realistically do you think they should leave it before they even attempt to, just to even write a biopic for George? Because at the moment, as much as I'd like to see one, I think it's still a little too early. But when realistically do you think is the right time to do it?
I guess probably do it on a 2-year gap. I mean, just like really scope out his upbringing and everything, his rise to the top, controversy, and just highlight the man, myth, the legend. I mean, I don't know how long it was developed, but I believe personally, my personal favorite music biopic, Straight Outta Compton. It did a lot, because for that, okay, technically I really didn't know about NWA way back when I was a kid, but that was before my time. But when I checked out just random sources, like, holy crap, these guys are awesome. So I think with that said, like I said, I think it should be like a 2-year gap, possibly. I mean, I remember Straight Outta Compton started developed in March 2009 and everything, so that's how long it took. How long it took, So for me, it just takes a long process to get things done. Just you start with a start date, and then just go with it. Go up there, sights, sounds, like how he grew up. Just keep it very detailed and not sloppy. That's the way I would see it.
Because one of the things that apparently was originally supposed to happen with Bohemian Rhapsody, apparently the movie was supposed to end with Freddie's death, and I think, in all honesty, it was much nicer just to end like the last act with the actors at Live Aid, because that was the better way to go out. Because if you're doing a biopic, you want to celebrate somebody, like a memorial thing, which is why I'm actually pleased with some of the things that WWE does today. Whenever they do their tributes, they present it in a way whereby, instead of a very somber, very low tone, they do it in a way whereby, like they did with for Bruno Sammartino, you came out of it feeling uplifted and happy. Although it was sad that the guy's gone, they did it in a way it was like, hey, this guy did a lot for us. We should be happy for what he was here for. And I think they did the right thing with Bohemian Rhapsody, and I think they should do something similar with George. Obviously, yes, the 1998 incident will be covered, because unfortunately you can't escape it. He remained adamant till the very end that he was set up with that. And George is not somebody that would strike me as being dishonest, because what's this guy got to hide? He pretty much put his hands on the table, said, here's my card, here's my cards. This is where the game is at, and he actually beat the press at their own game, because he actually, of all things, he went and did this interview on CNN. I have my own opinions about CNN. I'm not going to go there in this podcast with that. I let Hunter Avalon do that for me, which he roasted them once more the other day.
The less said about CNN, the better, because, yeah, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, one of my buddies who we call the Passionate Duran Garber, he refers to them as the Clown News Network. Oh, really? I thought I would get a better reaction. Oh, well, what do I know?
It's all good. We get the joke, though.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say this one out loud, but this is what a buddy of mine calls them.
Okay. Yeesh.
Yeah, I'm not saying that out loud.
Put that in the Discord chat so I can know what the heck he said.
Okay.
This ought to be good. Oh, hi. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying that aloud. I was like, no. No. But George was a very talented guy. Is minus Shoot the Dog and Freak, which Lids and Raiden would have preferred not to see that. Even in when we were doing a reaction, it's like, oh, George, keep your clothes on. It's like,
yeah, that was the thing.
But that was his way of just sort of taking the mick out of people at the time. Then was also his way of using the same animation studios that produced 2D TV. It was implied that George Bush and Tony Blair were a thing, and I'm like, George, that one's on you. I ain't going there. Especially when he's got at the end of the video, George Bush and Tony Blair dancing with each other like they're out of the Village People. I'm like, okay, you're really gonna go there? Damn. One of those things on 2D TV, it has to be seen to be believed. And again, there's things I just can't go into because they do get a bit controversial. But I mean, the irony, I think the biopic will probably get picked up by Sony. And considering George and Sony had a bit of a controversial back and forth business relationship back in the day, it'd be like, oh, this won't be awkward. But that said, Sony need the money at the moment because they're not doing too well. But
still need money.
Yeah, even though the Venom movie was probably the biggest money earner in a while, but let's be honest.
I mean, let's wait till Into the Spider-Verse and see what that goes. Because I'm actually looking forward to that movie.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Oh wow. Dan not only met up with Ric Flair, but he also met up with Tara Strong, Kevin Conroy. Nice going, dude.
Hey,
cool.
Nice.
Lids, with regards to any potential George Michael biopic, how do you think they should approach that? Because like with Freddie Mercury, it's not something you can just idly tell. I mean,
I think if anything, you don't have to sidestep some of the real stuff that happens. You definitely can't sidestep what he did in that bathroom a long time ago. But you cannot sidestep that. But also, it could be looked at the fact that he was so in the closet he had to hide who he was, and that's why he did what he did. And you can, in a way, you can kind of see him like he is technically like a gay icon, if you want to look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they can just like they can go with they don't have to keep it completely like dressing it up, because I know it's Hollywood and they have to dress it up, but it's like, should you? I don't think so. I think keep it as real as possible, but then again, I'm not a Hollywood producer.
Well, of course you're not. You actually make good decisions. They don't. The only thing I would probably do if I was given the reins to do it, be historically accurate, but be in a similar vein to how they dealt with the Queen biopic. You don't necessarily need to go for an R rating, just have it like PG-13, just have whereby it's not trying to be too family friendly, but at the same time, it's not trying to be too risque. And George could be risque when he wanted to. Times where he would actually produce things whereby, you know, families could actually be appreciative, like particularly when he did December Song, which I thought, ooh, you know, that's not bad, Mr. Michael. I was genuinely impressed with that. And the only other mandate, Andrew Garfield. That is all.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah, he fits, especially with the big ass hair he has.
Especially well, even in the Amazing Spider-Man, that wasn't his hair; that was a wig.
Hey, reuse it again.
No wonder he didn't put on that mask so easily. He could just take it off.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you can fit all that hair in that very smooth scalp of his.
But no, Andrew's, you know, a fine, dedicated actor. Considering some of the stuff that he's done, particularly whether it was the Spider-Man reboot or to being in The Social Network, you know, he's got the acting chops to pull that off, and yeah,
I heard he was really good at that movie Hacksaw Ridge.
Isn't that the?
I think it was directed by Mel Gibson, I believe.
Thank you, because I think that was his first directing movie since being quote unquote being allowed back into Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
But of all, you know, it's kind of an ironic twist. It was Gibson that got Downey Jr. his first proper acting gig after getting cleaned up and doing some jail time for his drug addiction. And it's Downey Jr. that gets Gibson his foot back in the door in Hollywood. But, you know, one good turn deserves another. There's an acceptance speech that he's got. I think it might have been the Tony Awards. And Downey says something to the effect of, in order to overcome your demons, he says that Gibson describes it as embrace, you know, hugging the cactus. You embrace it, you understand it, you just learn to live with it, and eventually you start coming out on the other side. You learn to get past what got you there in the first place. And he said, and now I'm asking you to all to forgive him and to continue his work because he's hugged the cactus enough. And he sort of looked at it as if to say, you're embarrassing me now, Rob, you know that. But, you know, he takes it in good graces. I mean, say what we will about Gibson with some of the controversial stuff he's found himself in. He's a good actor and, like I said, a very damn good director as well. There is word on the wire about him doing Lethal Weapon 5, but I'm like, if you can go, great. But I think it's one of those things like, you know, leave it alone now. Because even Eddie Murphy's still trying to do Beverly Hills Cop 4. I'm like, I mean, it would be interesting, just to see if he could go one more time as Axel Foley. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know, because even he has said he will only come back for it if the script is perfect. If it's not perfect, so don't expect me to show up. Which I thought, okay, that's why you don't see him so often now, because he actually enjoys his retirement. He actually enjoys just doing what he wants to do for a change, which that's not unreasonable. I mean, he's got the money to do it. I've rambled on enough. Kaiju, same question. If they do a George Michael biopic, what kind of scope and presentation should they go for? And if so, how long should they leave it? Because I think at the moment, the reason why I said 10 years at the very least is because it's a little too soon at the moment, because 2 years is still fresh with regards to dealing with the loss. I know they did a movie for Celine not too long
right after it happened.
Bitty bitty bun bun. Sorry, I can resist.
It's all right. It was still fresh in everyone's minds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was so fresh. I think they even used like actual footage from her actual funeral, or I think, to put
yes,
that.
Yes, they did. Right, the credits.
Right. And yeah, the idea of like Hollywood quickly making a movie to celebrate the death of an individual is nothing new. I mean, I think when Steve Jobs died, they made like what, 2, maybe 3 biopics of him.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. One starring Michael Fassbender and the other one starring Ashton Kutcher.
Right.
Oh. Okay.
And that was like made like 1 or 2 years after Steve Jobs died. Yeah. So I can see them making one of him anywhere between like within the next 5 years, maybe 10 years. Although I would say that maybe with the potential success of Bohemian Rhapsody, I'm going to say that perhaps Hollywood is going to try to experiment with a few more bigger named stars before going to George Michael's, because even though George Michael's is very famous and I do respect the hell out of him and his work, I can see so many more people getting a movie made before him, in all honesty. Say that Hollywood's probably going to experiment a bit more within the next 5 years, and potentially after that, within 10 years, they would probably do one with him.
That's actually
and even then, to what extent they're going to make it, I mean, I can't be sure. It could be like a Netflix exclusive that's lower budgeted, or it can be a bigger budgeted one with a fully theatrical release. But that's ultimately going to depend on how much like lasting power the name George Michael's will still have years from now.
And made it at last.
I win.
Yay.
I know.
What you're saying actually makes a lot of sense, Kaiju, because even though Bohemian Rhapsody is doing Hey Navi.
It's going to be super opinionated today. Mommy just got home from a trip.
Navi, if I was there, I would give you cuddles and let you pet my fingers. Because little tip from Jackson Galaxy, folks: don't pet the cat. Let the cat pet you. Just put your hand down and let them stroke your fingers with their face. They're actually showing you how they want to be petted. Steven says, Navi the kitty lord. Navi. But yeah, like I say, even though Bohemian Rhapsody is doing favorably well with the audience and with the box office numbers, as you say, time will tell. And of course, we got a biopic loosely based on Elton John as the next one, with Rocket Man next year, which Elton is, from what I've been hearing, heavily involved with it, which I thought, oh boy, this will be interesting. Because we know how flamboyant he tends to be with his input and what have you. But like I say, George is a story that needs to be told. And just to bring Win up to speed, if they ever do a George Michael biopic, there's only one name I want attached to play the lead role, and that's Andrew Garfield.
I see it.
I mean, obviously, yeah, when they do like performances, whether it's at the Freddie Mercury tribute or whenever he's performing Band-Aid, which was a Christmas charity single for to help famine in Ethiopia at the time in 1984, just dub in the archive audio for that. I mean, I don't know how good his singing is, but George will do that for him. Hollywood, I only ask one thing for future biopics. Please, please, for the love of gosh, no biopic on the Spice Girls. No one needs to relive that.
Damn it!
I saw.
Don't crush my dreams, MJ.
I saw Spice World, and I'm like, you could have made another movie
What are you
instead
talking
of this
about?
one.
It's a masterpiece.
I
I
watched it. I watched it when I was a kid. I don't know what came over me. I guess I was a big Spice Girls fan. There,
Here's the thing. If you have them just putting out their music videos, that's fine, because put them together, they actually are competent. Separately, the only one who's ever been measured any kind of notable success is Sporty, because she's the one with the talent, put out some good numbers, and from what I've seen from music videos, now whether this is the artistic director's input or Mel's input, I don't know, but I've always noticed a Ford Mustang in some of her videos, to which I'm like, okay, Mel, you're cool with me, because Mustang fans got to stick together and all that jazz. But another one I tell you one we don't need to see as a biopic. Britney Spears and Kesha.
Oh
No.
God, no.
How about
No. And the other one, and I think the First Lady of also will go out of her way to make sure this doesn't happen, the biopic of Kim Kardashian.
What is she gonna do for the majority of that movie?
Don't worry, Lydia. I'll help you out with this one.
Okay. Thank you.
It's not just for me. It's for everyone.
I believe Eddie from Bottom said it absolutely best with the Halloween episode. Absolutely not. If you were given the creative control with regards to writing, casting, to do a George Michael biopic, who would you get? But how long would you leave it? Because Christmas Day this year will only have been 2 years since George has passed. And there was a reason why I said at some point, because I think 2 years is still a little too early to go for something like that. And I think realistically, this is just me, 5 to 10 years down the line is probably the most ideal time to do it. Because by that point, people have done the grieving, they've gotten that out of their system and allowed time to heal a little bit. And by that point, you're at that stage whereby you're not grieving over for them anymore. You're actually celebrating, having fond memories of it. How long would you leave it?
I'd probably say 5 years would be a good and ideal kind of gap, because you don't want to burn people out on particular genres of movies.
Mm.
In this case, biopics.
Yeah.
Because this was how Westerns for a while kind of died out.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the 50s, it was one spaghetti Western after another. Don't get me wrong, they were entertaining, but if you showed too many of the same genre throughout the years over and over and over, people are going to get tired of it. You kind of need to give them a break. Kind of give them some stuff that's new, that's interesting. Like maybe make some more animated films, or maybe bring back the martial arts film craze. That was actually a fun craze.
I want that so badly.
Yes,
Or
queen.
just to jazz things up of a similar genre, why not look into samurai films?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And be sure to follow the philosophy that made him good. In other words, don't try to one-up Kurosawa.
Yeah.
Are you listening, Japan? Of course you're not. Mediocre anime live action adaptations and whatever J-drama adaptations you're obsessed with at the moment. And awful Godzilla animes.
I see a pattern here.
Wasn't there a Hanna-Barbera cartoon back in the day about Godzilla?
Indeed there was, my good sir.
I used to watch that religiously.
Up from the depths, 30 stories high, breathing fire, his head in the sky. I watched that shit all the time as a child, back on the early days of Cartoon Network.
Yeah, Kaiju, Brayton, Raph, and I were kind of shooting the shit about it a few weeks back, just as we were all viewing the first premiere of Waffle Man before SKL.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll gladly admit the series is stupid as hell, but it's definitely got a ton of charm to it.
It does. It's cheesy done right.
Right. And if you'd like to know my full thoughts on the series, you can check out my review on my channel.
Shameless plug.
I endorse this. The only thing, this is what I've said to the guys before you came in, since the trend seems to be with these musical biopics is they've named the Queen biopic after arguably their most iconic song, which is Bohemian Rhapsody. Even to this day, I still don't understand what they're on about, and that's in the context of the song. But sometimes that's the beauty of it. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean anything, and yet the song is just full of energy and just gives it life. Elton John's biopic is going to be dubbed Rocket Man. The only title I would give a George Michael biopic, the song he's most famous for, Careless Whisper.
Yeah.
And like I said, it'll probably be done by Sony, and they need the money at the moment, or even though Venom actually did good numbers for them. It'd also be another irony, because George and Sony had a bit of a back and forth thing back in the day, particularly with that infamous Sony court case in the early 90s where he had signed a contract whereby they told him to represent himself in a very specific way. He told them to go shove it, and he ended up losing out because he said he didn't want to be labeled as a sex symbol. Yet what did he do in most of his videos and albums after that? He kind of, was very unsubtle with some of them, as you know so well yourself from the Freak music video win.
Yeah, it was pretty clear that there was debauchery going on.
I remember hearing, it's like, why are they fucking in a phone booth? And Liz is just crying her eyes. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
There's still a lot of trauma, not gonna lie.
Could have just been timing, but Navi just kind of tilted his ears back as though cringing. Again, it could have just been coincidental timing. Also, doesn't help that I'm using like a little cleaning wipe on him. These vet recommended, super safe vanilla coconut cleaning wipes, so he's not a stinky kitty anymore.
Oh.
I'll probably give him a bath later, but when I feel safe enough and secure with the safety gear on, so I don't get clawed into pieces.
It's like, I'm gonna give Navi a bath. Eyes wide, ears light. I'm like, woman, what are you thinking? No, absolutely not. See, he's complaining already. All right. Anybody want to contribute further, or shall we just consider this particular topic closed?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think
We're good.
We must said everything we said.
Yeah, I can't really contribute too much since I was a little later than expected, thanks to Navi being a bad kitty. Yes, you.